There is nothing scarier than being loved the right way. Carl Jung. Have you ever been with someone where the sex was electric? At first, they were all in, passionate, attentive. They made you feel special, like you had awakened something in them no one else ever had. And then suddenly, they went cold. They didn't want to be close anymore. After intimacy, they became distant, confusing, or disappeared completely. You started asking yourself, is something wrong with me? Was I too needy? Was sex just a tool they used to get what they wanted? If you've ever experienced this, you're not alone. And no, you're not crazy. The truth is, for someone with a dismissive avoidant attachment style, sex isn't just physical. It's a psychological battlefield between the desire to connect and the fear of being seen, between the longing for closeness and the shame of having emotional needs, between love and the terror of being truly known. Sex, for them, is where all their unhealed wounds surface. And if you don't understand the hidden patterns behind their behavior, you can end up deeply hurt and wrongly blaming yourself. Today, we're breaking down the 7 secret sexual patterns of dismissive avoidance so you can see clearly what's really going on before it breaks your heart any further. 1. Push, pull in sex, close, then retreat. In the early stages of a relationship, the dismissive avoidant often appears intensely passionate, magnetic, and easily ignited by desire. They come on strong, take initiative, and overwhelm with intensity in those first intimate moments. They look at you with deep, lingering eyes, seemingly unrestrained in their hunger. It feels like a romance movie unfolding, filled with heat and charm, and you wonder, could this finally be real love? But the moment you start to open up emotionally, when you begin to share, to connect on a deeper level, something shifts. The avoidant grows quiet, distant, sometimes inexplicably absent. Just days ago, they were filled with desire, but now they avoid eye contact, dodge intimate conversations after sex, or even become emotionally evasive. The reason isn't about you. It's not about lost attraction. It's because sex has just triggered the most vulnerable layer of their internal defense: emotional proximity. To the dismissive avoidant, sex feels safe only when it remains purely physical, a space of release, desire, exploration. They can fully engage in sexual intensity, as long as it doesn't threaten their emotional armor. But the moment sex becomes a bridge into emotional intimacy, when closeness means, this person might truly see me, their internal alarm system lights up. Warning, too close, danger, emotional exposure imminent. They spiral into anxiety, confusion, and overwhelm, and they default to the only strategy their nervous system knows: avoidance. They postpone meetups, suddenly get busy, work piles up. They begin to normalize the relationship, create distance, or come up with vague excuses. Most notably, they begin to use sex not to deepen connection, but to cool it down. Dismissive avoidants are not lacking desire, they are lacking safety. They don't lack attraction, they lack the ability to stay present when someone asks for emotional presence. They crave connection, but every time you get close, they're reminded, connection means being seen, and being seen feels dangerous. Intimacy with an avoidant, therefore, can feel terrifying. The more right you do, the more afraid they become. And that is the most painful part of loving someone who never learned how to stay seen. 2. Mechanical sex, when control kills connection. Sex with a dismissive avoidant can sometimes feel like you're being intimate with someone who isn't actually there. They won't meet your eyes. The lights stay off. They rush or obsess over technique, performance, or memorable experiences. From the outside, it might look passionate, but inside, you feel cold. Cold in a way that makes your chest tighten. Here's the truth. The avoidant isn't using sex to connect. They're using sex to keep their distance. Why? Because emotional closeness threatens their sense of control. If they let themselves feel, they might be seen. If someone touches them not just with hands, but with presence, attention, love, their carefully constructed mask might slip. And what lies beneath that mask? Shame, that deep fear. If you see all of me, you'll leave. They can't risk that. So instead, they use sex not to move closer, but to stay in charge. They control the lights. They control the timing. They control the pace. Most of all, they control themselves so they don't accidentally soften and fall into connection. And when you begin to truly touch them, not physically, but emotionally, they recoil. If you speak softly after sex, if you hold them and whisper that they matter, if you look them in the eye and ask, "Are you okay?" with genuine care, that's when their nervous system slams shut. Because to the avoidant, tenderness is danger. It reawakens old wounds, the ones that taught them love was conditional, touch was risky, and emotions were too much. They don't know how to stay in connection. They only know how to stay inside the script where sex is performance, not presence. And the hardest part? They might still initiate sex. Not because they want intimacy, but because it's how they control the relationship without facing emotional truth. One hand pulls you close, the other pushes you away. One part of them craves your warmth, the other fears your gaze. The body burns, while the heart stays locked tight. And you, the person who may deeply love them, walk away feeling more alone after closeness than before. Because you were present, but they weren't. Part 3. From high to hollow, passion, then coldness. They entered your life like a gentle storm. Their gaze had a kind of depth that made you feel like they could see every lonely corner inside you. Their touch wasn't just physical, it felt like they were touching your heart. When they were present, they were fully present. No distractions, no phone, no pretense. Just the two of you in a space that felt sacred. And you thought, this must be love. So you opened up. You responded with realness. You dropped your guard. You let yourself become vulnerable, hoping the connection would deepen, grow into something true. Maybe you simply asked, "What are we? Where do you see this going?" And then, something strange happened. They went cold, not with anger but with absence, as if a part of them had just vanished. They were still there, physically, but the warmth in their eyes was gone. They started to retreat, fewer texts, less initiative, less presence. You felt confused. Did I do something wrong? Was I too forward? Was I just a fling to them? But here's the painful truth. You didn't do anything wrong. They're not pulling away from you. They're pulling away from closeness itself. They're not mistreating you, they're responding to their fear of being emotionally engulfed. Because to the dismissive avoidant, infatuation feels safe, but intimacy feels dangerous. When you're distant, they crave you. When you get close, they suffocate. When you're vague, they chase. When you're clear, they run. Sex, for them, can be like a sedative, a place they feel in control. But the moment sex becomes something more, when there's eye contact, soft words, deeper connection beyond pleasure, they panic. Because in their nervous system, closeness equals loss of control, and loss of control equals risk of being hurt. So they disappear after the high. Yesterday they said, "I miss you." Today, they're busy. A week later, they're a stranger. No breakup, no explanation, just silence slowly, steadily, and painfully replacing presence. And the hardest part? They know. They feel guilty, but they don't know how to stay. Because staying would mean facing their oldest, deepest fear. If someone truly sees me, they'll leave. So instead, they leave you first. 4. Choosing casual sex to avoid attachment. Dismissive avoidants often gravitate toward non-committal relationships, friends with benefits, no strings attached, or "we're just having fun." Oh, at first glance, it all seems mature, self-aware, clear-cut. No promises made, no expectations assumed. It feels like both sides are playing by the same rules. But beneath that surface of clarity lies something no one dares to name: the fear of emotional bonding. Avoidants don't choose casual sex because they hate love. They choose it because real love makes them feel exposed. Love asks them to consider someone else's needs, to stay when someone needs them, to be emotionally responsible when things get messy. And for them, that feels unbearably heavy. Casual sex gives them a sense of control. New attachments, new emotional obligations. No one gets to ask for more. And the moment someone starts catching real feelings, the avoidant pulls away, goes cold, distant, or disappears altogether. Because to them, anything that goes beyond the physical, anything that touches connection, presence, vulnerability, triggers their internal alarm system. They fear becoming dependent. They fear hurting someone. They fear getting hurt. Most of all, they fear being seen as not enough, not capable of making someone happy, not worthy of lasting love. So they choose to love without staying. But in doing so, they remain stuck in emotional isolation. Because the more they avoid commitment, the more they repeat a cycle of running from their deepest longing. To be needed, to be trusted, to be loved without having to pretend to be strong. And the saddest part? People often see them as cold or unbothered, when in truth, there's a child inside them who only knows one story. If someone sees the real me, they'll leave. Sank. Avoiding intimacy after sex. After sex, they get up, quickly get dressed, grab their phone, say something polite like, "I need to finish this real quick," or "good night," and then they vanish from the emotional space you just shared together. You're still lying there, your heart still softly pulsing from the closeness. You expected this would be the time when you both lie side by side, say something silly, hold each other, maybe share a glance, a breath. But no, they avoid every moment that might invite emotional connection. Because for the dismissive avoidant, the moment after sex is when their defense system goes into overdrive. It's not that sex means nothing to them. It's that sex is when they're closest to you, and that closeness terrifies them. The closer you get, the more likely they'll be seen. And being seen for someone carrying shame feels like exposure, like danger. Post-sex intimacy is like shining a light directly on the soul. It's where there's no more performance, no more technique, just truth and presence. And the avoidant doesn't know what to do with that kind of presence, because they're wired to run. Run from eye contact, run from emotion, run from the need to be loved, to be needed, to stay. For them, intimacy isn't joy, it's risk. And to protect themselves from possible rejection, they choose to leave first. They leave the room. They leave the emotional connection. They leave the very moment that could have turned into healing. The behaviors rushing to leave, avoiding eye contact, making excuses to get back to work, or simply going emotionally numb are not because they don't care. They happen because their nervous system doesn't know how to stay with emotion. That's their safe cave. Move fast, avoid skillfully, and never have to face the truth that someone just touched them, not just physically, but emotionally. And so, the moment that should have been the deepest connection becomes the clearest disconnect. One person is opening up, the other is shutting down. 6. Living in fantasy more than reality. Dismissive avoidants often don't live in connection, they live in fantasy. For them, the world of sexual imagination is the only place that feels truly safe. There, they control everything. The storyline, the characters, the reactions, the timing. No one makes emotional demands. No one sees who they really are. No complex feelings. No consequences. Just desire played out in a private, isolated space where no one can hurt them. That's why many avoidants frequently turn to pornography. Not just for pleasure, but because it doesn't require real emotional presence. In that space, no one touches them emotionally. No one asks them to show up, to listen, to open up. No one demands vulnerability, only control. And that sense of control makes them feel safe. But the tragedy is, this safety pulls them further away from real life. When they meet someone real, someone emotionally available, open, and truly present, they feel overwhelmed. Instead of leaning in, they retreat into fantasy. They turn back to imagined scripts, to curated visuals, to mental scenarios where there's no judgment, no rejection, and no need to emotionally grow up. They might have sex with a real partner, but mentally, they're not there. They've escaped into a private world where no one can touch the parts of them that still fear being seen. If I'm not truly here, I can't be truly abandoned. Fantasy becomes the mask they wear even in bed. You may think you're sharing an intimate moment, but their soul has long since slipped out the side door. And this isn't because they're cold or incapable of love. It's because real presence asks for something they've never learned how to give, the courage to feel safe in being seen. 7. Shame around their own desires. Avoidants don't lack desire. They feel it intensely. They can carry deep, vivid, even romantic longings. But every time those desires rise, shame shows up right beside them. They may want you, crave closeness, yearn to be touched, held, to melt into connection, but as soon as it feels real, they pull away. Not because the desire is gone, but because they're afraid of being judged for wanting it. They don't hate sex. They hate the feeling of being seen in sex. They hate the moment when desire makes them feel exposed, uncontrolled, emotionally naked. To them, desire isn't just a natural urge. It's a threat, because desire means admitting, I need, I feel, I want. And they were raised directly or subtly to believe that needing is weakness. Many avoidants grew up in environments where emotions were punished or ridiculed, where vulnerability was met with shame, where expressing physical or emotional needs led to embarrassment, rejection, or silence. Those memories don't disappear. They hide in the nervous system, in the body. And when desire resurfaces in adulthood, so do the old internal messages. Don't let them see the real you. It's shameful. Wanting too much? They'll leave. Needing someone? That's pathetic. And so when they start to feel something real, something tender, something deep, their defenses kick in. They shut down. They back off. They emotionally vanish. They don't want you to see them tremble. They don't want you to see them ache. They don't want you to see that they need love, because in their world, need equals weakness. And weakness drives people away. So they leave, before you get close enough to witness the soft, scared part inside. That part is still just a child, one who once got shamed for feeling, for wanting, for showing too much. Now wrapped in the shell of an adult who pretends they don't care. And because they can't stay, they miss what could heal them most. That desire is not something to be ashamed of. That longing for connection is deeply human. That love doesn't require perfection, only presence. Dismissive avoidants are not villains. They're not cold-hearted monsters. They're just children who never learned how to stay with their feelings. They survived by disconnecting, and now they've brought that survival strategy into love. But survival mode can't build connection. It keeps you alive, but not close. And real love, it requires closeness. If you've loved someone like this, please know, you are not too much. You are not the reason they ran. You just touched a wound they weren't ready to face. They didn't leave because you did it wrong. They left because you did it right. You showed up. You were real. You gave your love with courage. And if you are the one who leans toward avoidance, if you've hurt people you genuinely cared for, if you're tired of always having to be strong but still feel lonely inside, then here's your invitation. Pause. Look within. Meet the child inside you, the one who learned to disconnect in order to be loved. And then, little by little, learn how to stay. Stay when emotions rise. Stay when someone's honest with you. Stay when every part of you wants to bolt. You don't have to repeat the cycle. Avoidance can be healed, but only when you choose courage over control, truth over escape, and closeness over distance. Love doesn't need you to be perfect. It only needs you to stay truly.